Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the beautiful Karen Smith, and we are going to be talking about living fearlessly. I know because you told me, Karen, this is also the title of your chapter in the new book that came out, where you have written a chapter in. And I look forward to talking about this topic because lots of people live with a certain fear. And I think it's time right now to, look the fear in the eye and let it go. So I've been looking forward to our talk, and I am very happy that you're a guest here today.
Well, thank you very much, Barbara. I'm happy to be here.
So I'm right? This is the title of your chapter in the book with Kate.
It's not necessarily the title of the chapter, but it's in the chapter of the book. Basically, it's the foundation of what the book is about, what the
Yeah.
chapter is about, actually.
Yes. So what does that mean to you to live fearlessly?
Living fearlessly basically is having the faith that things are going to work out. Um, treating everybody, approaching situations with empathy, finding the adventure in life instead of just focusing always on the negative. Every situation you're in, having that respect with people, right? Respecting their viewpoints, respecting who they are, respecting, I always tell patients in my clinic, there are three things in life that I don't talk about in my practice. And one of that is politics, the other is religion, and the other one's how much money I make.
I
So
think
respecting
actually,
those boundaries, right?
yes. Yes, exactly. I don't watch the news. I don't follow things. People ask me, "Did you see the politics?" And I said, "No." So I can live by that rule. Yeah. So it's indeed very important. But so many people do live in fear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And they end up bearing that fear inside of them, as you and I have talked before, the kidney, you're exactly right on that, where we bury that fear inside of there and we tend to have ailments related to that. So, um, you're never going to get away from fear. But if you can find little tidbits and little points of being able to direct yourself and keep in mind um, that tomorrow's a new day, the sun's going to come out, and you get to choose how you wake up and how you approach that day.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. And so Eckhart Tolle also talks about it in his book, The Power of Now. Most people either live in a fear in the past or in a fear of the future. So they're
Mhm.
either afraid of decisions that they made and how they're going to turn out, or I should have done this, I should have done that, and fear of what's going to happen, or they are afraid of the future about things that they still need to choose or decisions that need to be made and how they are going to impact their life and what's going to work. People are also afraid of being judged. They are afraid of being condemned. They are afraid of not being enough. And I can go on. There are many, many fears. And I think that a large part of these fears are being handed down from generation to generation. And the other half, I think, come from our society in the way that we've been raised, how our school system works.
I would agree 100% with that. And I would say that as I've aged and I've seen my kids grow up and go through those changes with social media, they're always comparing themselves to, I didn't do this enough, I didn't do that enough, and I should be here in life instead of enjoying that journey and enjoying life. They are constantly trying to catch up to everybody else, right? Which, I mean, they could be making $100,000 and that's still not enough. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, that's the fear of being found lacking.
Yeah.
And of course, we have FOMO, the fear of missing out, that we're not doing good enough or that we're not having enough and I think it's actually gotten worse with what we call the social media because in my opinion they're not really social. I think they make people isolated islands and people usually only post their most beautiful self, right? Look at me having this, or look at me of going there, this holiday, this fancy restaurant, that thick car, or and that for further fuels the people who are lonely or are already suffering from the fear of feeling not good enough, to think, oh, look at them being rich, look at them being successful, look at what all they have, how often they go on holiday, and I need to really seriously think if I'm going to spend my money on groceries or maybe putting benzene in the car.
Yeah, right? That's true. That's very
Yes.
true.
And what I've seen is there are basically two ways of making decisions in life. One is from a fear based, where you make decisions because you're afraid of something. But the opposite side of it is love based decisions. And love based decisions, that's a bit what you talked about, where you trust that, well, whatever I choose is going to be the best choice. And it
Yeah,
doesn't matter if I choose A or B, it's going to be the best. And I trust in my intuition, I trust in my guidance in making this decision. And then I let go, I surrender to the outcome of the decision, and I trust that I am being taken care of, that I am getting what I want, that I'm good enough, and that I don't have to worry about anything.
right. I always, how I make a decision a lot of times is two things, whether it's going to kill me or whether it's going to put me in jail. And everything else, I just jump forward.
Yes, I like that. So,
So,
yeah, because there are not a lot of things that are actually going to kill you, and there are also not, if in general, for most people, a lot of things that are going to put you in jail. If there are, then you're hanging with the wrong crowd, and this is not your
correct.
time.
That is correct.
Yes. And so a way that I overcame some of the fears that I had was to look at the worst case scenario. When I bought this house, the previous owners had a red carpet on the stairs, and it was held in place with copper rods. And then when I actually got the house, they took the copper rods, and
Goodness.
then there was just loose fabric on the stairs. Well, that's death trap waiting to happen, so I had to remove it, because I also don't like red and I also don't like copper, so that was not the issue. But then they hadn't painted underneath it, they had only painted the sides of it, so underneath it was horrible and ugly. And then I thought, oh, I cannot leave it this way, so I went out and I saw this beautiful roll of carpet that I thought was just wide enough to cover everything so that I could leave it there. And then I thought, can I do this by myself? What if this? What if that? And then I thought, well, what if it turns out perfectly, right? So I thought, what's the worst case scenario here? If I put it on myself and at the end it's not on right, it's crooked or it has lumps or bubbles or whatever, right? Then I would need to take it off again, and then I would need to find someone to put it on for me. I thought,
Right.
oh, I can handle that. If
Mhm.
that's the worst case scenario, oh, I think I can handle that. So I bought a nail gun and I just started thinking logical. You want to have it be really tight in the corners, right? So that it cannot go off and that you cannot slip on it, or that it comes loose and that you're at the end of the stairs. So I made sure there were plenty of nails everywhere it was in the corners. And then at the end, it was on straight and it was flat and it was beautiful. And I felt so proud of myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of my son and I did a bunch of remodel work in the last 2 years. He bought houses, we flipped the houses. And the first time we ever redid anything was in my kitchen, and it was tile work in the kitchen. And we didn't have one of those saws, the wet saws, to be able to cut the tile. We just had, I had no idea how to cut the tile. So I bought one of those little things that you roll back and forth and it cuts it, and then you have to break it.
Yeah.
So it took us forever to do that. And so I realized we started watching we started watching videos then on YouTube after we got done doing my kitchen. And he bought another house and we bought a saw. And lickety split, it was so easy to put that in. Basically I couldn't believe the change from the first time we did it to the change the second time we did it. And like you
Yeah.
said, what's worst case scenario? You tear it all back out and you put in new tile.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Exactly. So this is a really great way of overcoming the fears that you're having. For instance, you're going to a networking event as a new business owner, and you think, "Oh God, lots of people, and what if I'm by myself? What if nobody likes me? What if all of these fears that you can have." And then, well, that might be the worst case scenario, that nobody wants to talk to you, and that you're there by yourself the entire night. And you think, well, as long as there's wine and nice food, who cares? I can handle that. Because in the grand scheme of things, how bad is that? And you also have influence over it. If you don't want to be by yourself, then you need to go to people and start talking to people. And so
Sure,
thinking of what's the worst case scenario in whatever it is that you're wanting to do is a great way of overcoming fears.
I
Do
agree.
you have other tips for overcoming fears?
Yeah, so I think writing down your pros and your cons on what, if I make this decision, what's that look like, right? Or if I make this decision, what does that look like? And I always outweigh the good versus the bad. If that one decision looks, the bad outweighs the good, then I'm not going to make that decision. I'm going to go for the other one. But I think fear of trying new things is a common fear on everybody, right? I was scared when I first graduated chiropractic school to become a chiropractor and actually to adjust people because I didn't feel like I knew enough, right?
Yeah.
So I was a mother of two. I was a single mom, and so I became a dispatcher for a trucking company instead.
Mhm.
And I did that for a few years, and then I started a chiropractic office and saw 8 to 10 people a month. Um, and then my sister got very, very ill. She had breast cancer
Oh,
in Washington, and so I packed up the kids and we moved out there, quit my job, and saw 123 patients the first week. And it
wow.
was either sink or swim. Sometimes you have to overcome those terrible feelings of inadequacy. Uh, and love, a lot of times, to me, outweighs that. So um,
Yes.
I think when you look at the big scheme of things, how much do you love that person? How much do you want to take care of them? In my case, that overcame the fear of hurting somebody, of being a chiropractor, and slowly but surely she taught me how to be an amazing doctor. And when she passed away, I moved back home and now have my own clinic. So that's been 15 years ago.
That is a beautiful story, and it's so true, right? I think it usually has to do with a fear of confidence in oneself.
Sure.
We're afraid that we're not, well, they're not good enough, I think, is at the bottom of it, right? Where you are afraid that you don't have what it takes or that you cannot make it successful. But then you are put in a position where it's either have my loved one die or me just going for it.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you love that person enough, then you just go for it.
Well, and I think also too, you made a statement in the beginning of the show of transgenerational. And, I think a lot of times we respond or we react, in the majority of the time we respond or we react to how we see our parents respond and react, right? So if you see your parents being shy and not really being outgoing people, the majority of the time you're going to follow in their lead until you get old enough to realize that that's not the type of person I want to be.
Yes.
Um, right? And so I never had to worry about that because my dad was always an outgoing person. My mom was always an outgoing person. All my brothers and sisters are outgoing. We really don't have a problem talking. So
Yeah, but you're very right. So if we see it from a very young age, right? We see our parents responding to certain things. We see money worries, for instance, and
yes,
then we take that over. It becomes also our truth, and oftentimes I call those the bullshit rules of life, the rules. We need to stop and become aware of the pattern, and then think, but is this actually true for me? And do I want it to be true for me? Yes or no? These are important questions because usually it is not true for you or you don't want it to be true. And when you don't want it to be true, it doesn't have to be true.
right. That's a great statement.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have what we talked about before. It's the fear of missing out. That has become a really great fear, I think, for a lot of people right now because You need to be with the in crowd, and it already started in school, right? With the popular kids and wanting to belong to a group or to the popular group because you don't want to be by yourself or have to go through life, school by yourself.
Sure. And the sad part in that is, the fear of missing out can lead to a lot of detrimental things. It can lead to following a wrong crowd and making bad decisions because you just want to fit in. My son kind of struggled with that when he was in high school. It can also lead to financial ruin because, for example, when I didn't have any money, I always made sure I went to my family reunions, even if I couldn't afford it. A lot of times putting it on credit cards or borrowing money from someone else because I didn't want to miss out on that family time because those are memories that you may never get back, right? But at the end of the day, that doesn't make you have to, like I said earlier, you have to outweigh those good and those bads. If it's going to put you in financial ruin, you probably shouldn't be going.
Yeah, but a lot of people are also afraid of being judged, right? Are
Yeah,
afraid of
true.
what will people think of me? What will people say about me? How will I be perceived? And what opinions will they then have? And what consequences will that then have?
That's so true. Are they going to talk about me if I don't go?
Yeah, but it's not only with family, it's also at work, right? What will my coworkers think? What will my boss think when you make certain decisions? Or even I see it with business owners that they're still afraid of what if I screw up? What if they think I'm not good enough? And then fill in coach, chiropractor, acupuncturist, whatever the word is that you are. And this is also, I think, a deeply ingrained fear in people.
Yeah. Two of the things that that has really helped me move forward. One is listening to meditation music and doing meditation. I try to do meditation about 10 to 15 minutes a day. And the other thing is a technique called EVOX, EVOX, and it's a biofeedback of the body where you speak to basically the computer. It's a program, and then that program analyzes your voice, and it takes that charge or it takes that perception off and reprograms that perception for you. So if you have the perception of fear of not being good enough, that biofeedback then gets fed back into the body, and it takes anywhere between 4 and last night I was working on somebody and it was 17 times that it took to be able to release that, which was amazing.
Yes,
Um, and then the third technique I use, I only said two, but there's another technique I use, which is neuro-emotional technique. And that is a testing of the body. It's muscle testing and
mhm,
finding out where that charge is on that emotion and when that charge happened. And so if it's fear, you can work on the kidney. You can, a lot of times that's where that comes from, as we talked about, bladder as well, can work on that. And so there's areas on the hand that you can touch and do your emotional point and take that charge off of that to be able to move forward. So,
I love that. Yes, exactly. So what Karen and I are talking about is traditional Chinese medicine, where emotions are connected to the yin organs, and in this case, the bladder and the kidney are the yin yang partner, which is why both of them can house fear, which is actually coming from the kidney as the yin partner. But I love that. So lots of people tell me, but I cannot meditate. I cannot sit still. I cannot do that. So,
mhm.
how do you meditate 10 to 15 minutes a day? Do you use guided meditation or do you just sit still and maybe focus on your breath, or how does that work best for you?
So I try to just lay down or get into a comfortable position. And you breathe in. I do the box breathing where you breathe in 4, breathe out, hold 4, breathe out 4, hold 4, which kind of calms your mind as well. And also there's a technique that Brendan Burchard, where I was an ultra member in his mastermind program, taught us. And then that's basically talking about release. Anytime your mind starts wandering and you're closing your eyes, you just keep repeating release, release. You can say it out loud or you can say it in your head. So
Mhm.
that has helped me tremendously. I didn't start at 10 to 15 minutes. I started at about 10 seconds.
Exactly. It's a muscle that you're training, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, and the box breathing is indeed a really great one. You also have another technique where you breathe in for 4 minutes, you hold 7, and then you breathe out for 8. Because when your out breath is longer than your in breath, that's when you're calming the nervous system. You're taking yourself out of survival mode, fight or flight or freeze mode, and then you go into a deep internal relaxation just by the tool of your breath. And then there is room for whatever it is that you're working on. That's also a
Mhm.
beautiful one. Yes.
There's another one where you breathe in 30 times. Isn't there where you breathe?
Dragon breath. Yes.
Yeah, reckon breath. Yep, that's exactly what it is. Yep.
Yes. But that's really more for releasing, because when you do that, you breathe in forcefully and then out, and but you do it through the nose, mouth, nose, mouth, nose, mouth, nose, mouth, and
Mhm.
you go faster and faster and faster and faster. And what then
Mhm.
happens is you release a lot of emotions, a lot of stress. Sometimes people even vomit. And you need to keep your
Wow.
mouth open when you're doing it. It's a very, very intense thing that I don't recommend people trying by themselves at home if they've never done it before. Then it would be best to do it with someone. But that indeed can be a great way to release trapped emotions when you don't really know what it is. Usually we use it with trauma. I also like to work with EFT, tapping,
Oh,
emotional
sure.
freedom techniques, right? Where we can also tap into whatever is going on and release it. So there are so many beautiful ways in which we can work with the body or with the energy to release it. Because in the end, emotion, energy in motion. It means
Mhm.
emotions are meant to be felt. Emotions need to flow. But what a lot of us do is, as soon as we become emotional, we lock it, right? We get tense, or we suppress it, and then we internalize it, and seldomly we go back to it. It's just we don't want to face it, we don't want to feel it, we don't want to see it, it needs to be gone, and we internalize it. But that then eventually always leads to problems later on.
Mhm. I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yes.
I think
So
journaling it is another really great way to rid yourself of fear as well. If you can wake up and, write down the things you're most grateful for. I try to do three a morning. And then at night before I go to bed, I try to read those three, just to keep reminding myself that, there's a lot of really good things in life that I'm really thankful for.
yes.
And when we approach life just in fear, like you said, you stay in that fight, flight mode, that you don't always remember to be thankful for the things that you do have.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I've created a couple of different journals, and one of them is a gratitude journal, which indeed is just the practice of gratitude, finding the things that you're grateful for. Another one is the daily reflections, where in the morning you say three things that you want to happen for the day, three things that you're grateful for, and in the evening, then you look back on your day and you see how the day actually went. So you have two moments where you look at your day. This also really helps you with your focus on the right things, right? Because so many people
Sure.
are not aware of their thoughts. They are sort of a slave of their thoughts, and they often also think that there is no control over our thoughts, but that's not true. And the sooner you get intimately familiar with your thoughts and what type of thoughts you're thinking, the sooner you can start working with your thoughts and changing them into the thoughts that you actually want to be thinking instead of the
Yeah.
default thoughts that come out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I love it. So
Changing the mindset.
yes, mindset is such an important thing in, conquering your fears. Of course, it is connected to the body. Mind and body are connected. So it's with traditional Chinese medicine, we learn it can be a two-way street. So if you have kidney problems, then that can manifest itself in fears. If that happens, then it's a physical problem. Then it's not a mindset problem. Then it really comes from the body, and then you need to take action on healing the kidneys. So that is something that can happen. But it can also be the other way around, where you are constantly afraid of everything and then you are hurting your kidneys. So it goes both ways. And I remember I had a client who was 28, and one of my specialties is erectile dysfunction. So he came for that problem to my clinic, and it's unusual for someone with that age to have this specific problem. So he went into the whole Western circuit, and they couldn't find anything wrong. So that's how he ended up with me. And we started talking, and it turned out that while driving home from work, He was sandwiched in the car on the highway between two massive trucks. And it wasn't his fault. There was a traffic jam. The truck in front of him stopped. He stopped in time. The truck behind him wasn't paying attention, rammed into him, and then pushed him into the other truck.
Oh, wow.
When they freed him from the car, if you saw the way the car looked, people were surprised that he was okay. He didn't have a scratch on him. That was not logical if you look at the way the car was looking. But then you have massive fear, right? Massive acute fear of not surviving it, which then completely drained his kidneys, which then led to his erectile problem. And
Mhm.
that's also something that can happen. So then it's an outside circumstance that triggers this huge amount of fear that then has a huge effect on the body.
Mhm. Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because my whole life I've been fearful of losing people that I love because I lost my mom at such a young age. And so it affected how I parented, it affected how I approached life, it affected how I lived my life.
Yeah.
And a year ago, I was diagnosed with a kidney cyst the size of my kidney, which is really interesting as we're talking about the fear, uh,
Yes.
how that correlated with it.
Yeah.
And thank goodness it's not anything that's going to be, detrimental or, that they have to take out or anything like that. But my goal now is to heal that through acupuncture, through, nutrition and thought process and meditating. And yeah, so.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that that is possible because I think indeed and it's logical, right? When you are so young and you lose someone so important at
Mhm.
that age, that cannot but trigger a fear.
Right.
And when that fear is ongoing, then that has an effect on the body. So I can totally see the relationship between the cyst and the fear. But if you start working with the fear and you start resolving it, dissolving it, and going deeper and deeper into your layers of that fear, healing everything that is there, then that also has an equal effect on the body. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know about you. As I've aged, I've realized, especially after I hit the age of 50, that life is just too short. I'm not going to live my life every day waking up worried about what could happen. I'm going to
Mm.
make things happen. And I don't know. How about you? Do you feel yourself changing as you age?
Yes, I haven't reached 50 yet, but what I can definitely see is that I used to be afraid of what people thought about me. So I did my best to turn myself into the version of myself that I thought other people wanted me to be because I wanted to have friends and I wanted to be liked and I wanted to fit in. And I came to the realization a couple of years ago that I don't have that fear at all anymore. I am who I am, and you either like me or you don't like me. But I've stopped caring, and it's not that it sounds really cold maybe or callous, but it's not that. It's just I know who I am. I know to the deepest extent of myself who I am, and that I am a beautiful person with a really big heart that goes through fires, deep rivers, steep mountains, and whatever is necessary for the people that I love. So
Mhm.
if people call me a bitch, then okay, that's your right, right? And I recently
We have
learned
no control over that.
no, you don't have any control over that. And I this last week I learned a total cool explanation of the word bitch that I'm now proudly owning. It's babe in total control of herself. So,
Love it.
right,
Love
every
it.
time someone now calls me a bitch, I think girl power.
I sure am.
But there comes freedom, and I don't think it just comes by aging. It comes also because we've worked on ourselves.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Yep.
Just aging, I don't think, because if I look at my mom, for instance, um, um, I don't see that what we are talking about as prominently as it is with you and me. So it's
Mhm.
also aging does help, but it's also working on yourself.
Healing
Being
our trauma. Mhm.
Yes, so I did massive shadow work. I did inner child healing, energy healing, you name it. I probably tried it because I didn't want to feel that way. My desire is always to be free, freedom in every sense of the word, and that also means being free of my fear of what other people think, or the fear of how you're being perceived, or the fear of being judged. I want to be free to be me.
Yeah. Are you familiar with who Brendan Bouchard is?
Yes.
So when I went to his seminar, first seminar, I'd never heard of him before, went to it, and it was like a cloud was lifted over top of me. Like it was taken off the top of me because he
Mhm.
was so authentic. He was so just who he is. And he didn't care what anybody thought. He was
Yes.
goofy. He came out and danced. He cried. He swore. He just didn't care, right? And
Yes.
and I really connected with that because that's who I am as a doctor. That's who I want to be in the world. I want to bring love and joy and peace to people, and try to eliminate their fear and give them the hope that there's more than what they're living right now.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I call, that is my definition of authenticity, right? Where you just are who you are, your
Yeah,
real self, not the version of yourself that you created or versions of yourself that you created, not wearing masks or hiding behind stuff, but just if you're funny or if you're quirky, be funny, be quirky. If you're strange, be strange, own it.
yeah.
And dance to your own song and do your own jokes. And even if you're the only one laughing about them, don't let that stop you.
I had a kid ask me today, what sets you apart from all the other chiropractors in your region? I said, probably my goofiness. I said, I'll run into the room, and if I trip and fall, I trip and fall. Welcome to my practice.
Yes. But
And that
that's
has happened.
exactly. Most of us, we feel shame when things like that happen. But everybody is human and everybody can trip and fall on their face. It's
Yeah,
it's how you handle it and how you deal with it after that's
right.
the most important thing.
I found if you can laugh at yourself, that fear dissipates. It's when you're afraid to laugh at yourself that you internalize that and you're looking around going, did anybody see that? Oh my gosh, what are they thinking? I know they must think I'm a knucklehead. But, you know, like you said, everybody falls on their face, everybody makes mistakes, everybody flubs up when they're talking in a speech. It just is what it is. Own it
Yeah.
and go forward with it.
Sometimes I think if people can listen to the talks that I have with myself in my head, they would love me to listen to them. Because I can really have a conversation that goes something like, "Oh, that didn't go well, you right?"
Oh my gosh.
No,
That's
what did
great.
we learn from this? Well, to pick up our feet more. Oh yeah, that sounds like an excellent idea. So maybe we need to not wear heels in the future when we are at work. Oh yeah, that could also maybe help. Yeah, with balance, right? Yes, with balance.
So you answer yourself.
I have a whole dialogue with myself. And sometimes I crack myself up. Then the dialogue in my head is so funny, and then I also laugh, and then I laugh about myself, and I think, okay, well, we learned something important here today. Yeah, for sure.
Right, right.
Yes. And I think humor makes everything better. And
Oh,
when you can laugh about things, about situations, but especially about yourself, when you don't have to take everything so serious and can look for the silver lining in everything, right? Then that's gold right there.
yeah. That's actually part of the fearlessly. Um, that's the L in the fearlessly because, it's like you said, laughter heals. And to me, the two top things in life is love and laughter.
Yes, for sure. Yes. I think
It
those are
heals
the
a lot.
yeah. Yes. I love it. Are there some final words or tips that you want to give people who are stuck in fear at the moment?
Yeah. Give meditation a try. Write down what your dreams are. This is what I recommend to all my clients is start with a dream board. Start pulling out those dreams that you used to have. And if you're fearful of going forward in life, um, there had to have been a time at your life, whether you were young, whether you're a teenager, whether you're in your 20s, that there was something you always wanted to try. Now's the day to try it.
I love it. Yes. Because what's the worst that can happen when you try? Get clear
Right.
on that. Get
That's
clear
right.
on if you can live with that worst thing. And if yes, then just do it.
Let
I love it. So if you've been watching and if you've been listening to us, thank you. I would love to hear from you. What was your key takeaway, your biggest insight of the talk today? Or maybe you have a question or something. I would love it if you could put that into the comments so that we can answer you. I can also imagine that you think, oh, I need some of Karen's magic and I need a chiropractor or I need someone to help me with my fear. So if people feel that they want to reach out to you, Karen, where can they find you?
You can email me at healingheartsandbodies@gmail.com, or you can send me a text at 563-726-3019, or you can follow me on Instagram, Dr. Karen Smith, DC.
Perfect. I will make sure that everything that Karen just mentioned is included in the show notes for this episode, probably somewhere below this video, but it could also be to the sides. It kind of depends on where you're catching this. But in any case, I will make sure that it's included. And for today, I want to thank you, Karen, for being a wonderful guest, for talking about this very important topic. And I want to thank all of you for watching and for your undying support for this channel and, of course, this podcast.
Thank you.
Have an amazing rest of your day, everybody, and I look forward to inspiring you again with another beautiful guest in next week's episode.